Wanted to talk about the study where they were looking at microglial activity in the brain and nervous system. So, microglial is a type of white blood cell or macrophage that essentially resides within the brain tissue, and it's part of the immune system. So, when this is activated in the brain, that's showing that there is inflammation going on there. So, in this study, they saw that patients with major depressive disorder and who had suicidal thoughts actually had increased microglial activity inside of the brain. This, by the way, is not an entirely new concept within the world of functional medicine because it's known that 5-HTP, the precursor of serotonin, well, that could be converted to serotonin, but if the body is under inflammation, it can go towards production of inflammatory cytokines instead. And there are what's called an organic acid test, which allows someone to actually measure this. I don't really run those that often, and I think it's a little reductionistic to reduce depression down to serotonin, which is sort of an unproven idea. But at least this concept of some type of inflammatory process going on underneath depression, this has been around a while. And it's really interesting to see that they're doing imaging study to demonstrate this. Something else that's good about this is it's challenging this notion that you can take someone who has mental symptoms and make biological claims about them without any lab tests. I mean, that's what happens in psychiatry. They'll get someone, say, well, we have a chemical imbalance based upon nothing. They don't do any lab tests. There's no blood test. There's no imaging, and give people a drug. The drug is supposed to, in theory, since it's a drug, correct something biological, but there is no data saying something is biologically wrong with them. They're just guessing. So it's good to see research being done within the realm of conventional medicine, which is moving towards looking at a biological cause of mental illness. Of course, in the world of natural health, it's always been that way. The world of natural health understands that the body is one complete holistic unit, and that psychology can affect how the body works, but there might be physical problems which are affecting how the mind works. Going to go through a couple of excerpts from the article. In this paragraph, we see the quote that this paper is an important addition to the view that inflammation is a feature of the neurobiology of a subgroup of depressed patients. In this case, the group was suicidal ideation. That is good, but I think it's kind of funny that at the end it says that anti-inflammatory drugs may have antidepressant effects that are limited to patients with demonstrable inflammation. Now, if there is microglial activation within the brain, then it should just beg the question, why is that inflammation there? Is this something with infection? Is this something with toxicity? Is this something related to diet and nutrition? You see, in the world of natural health, holistic health, you look at the person, like one entire entity. If there's inflammation there, it's there for a reason. You don't just say, well, there's inflammation, maybe we can develop a way to suppress the inflammation, which I know anti-inflammatories are very much hyped today in the world of natural health. But unless you're looking at someone like a whole person, understanding why they have that inflammation and looking to address the root cause, then you're not working in a holistic way. So, for example, turmeric is a great anti-inflammatory, but if someone just takes turmeric because they have inflammation without questioning why they have inflammation, that's just using turmeric kind of like a drug. So this is a bit of a reductionistic mindset. So I think it's important when looking at papers like this or research like this, while it's interesting, while it can be useful, it might also be coming from people who still have a reductionistic view of what's going on. And a question I would have is it possible for someone's psychology to lead towards inflammation? And so in that case, maybe meditation or maybe talking to a therapist would help this. I'm just throwing that out as a possibility because we wanted to see, because the mind-body connection definitely can go both ways. Okay, in this paragraph, they just go over how they found that the immune system activation was most prominent in the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region involved in mood regulation. Something that this article doesn't go into is if this type of imaging could possibly be used as a diagnostic tool. And what I would ask is not to diagnose depression, because depression is a feeling, and feeling like depression, or it doesn't really make sense to me to call that a biological diagnosis. But maybe this could be used in the future to diagnose that someone has inflammation in the brain, and then you go through your holistic assessment to determine why that inflammation is in the brain. At least that's what you want to do in the world of natural health. But anyway, I think this was a interesting article, and a lot of times, like you'll see research out there, which may or may not be useful. This actually seems rather interesting. I don't know what's going on here when they talked about that there was another study that found altered microglial activation in medication-free major depressive disorder patients. But the article doesn't say really what was going on in the patients who are on medication, and if the psychiatric medication has an effect on microglial activation. Of course, maybe it does, and that's how one mechanism how it may help people with depression. But of course, these psychiatric drugs have numerous side effects, and in the long term don't even seem to work that well for most people. So we want to develop healthy alternatives to it. But if you read articles like this, there's always going to be this slant how the information should be used to develop better drugs, whereas from a natural perspective, you want to take the same information but say maybe we could use this to learn how to better treat people holistically. Okay, that's it. Bye.